But you found the place all good?
Yeah.
Awesome.
No, you guys are like 10 minutes from my place.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Alrighty, okay, we'll just get stuck straight into it.
Yeah.
Can you tell us who you are, where you're from, and what you do?
My name is Emily. I'm 30 years old. I am from Hawke's Bay, but I've lived in Auckland for the last 10 plus years. I'm a stay-at-home mum of 4. We have 3 daughters and 1 son. Their ages are 13, 11, 4 and 1.
Yeah. And why have you agreed to take part in the Let Me Speak campaign?
I just want to get my story out there and what I went through. And yeah, I just want to let people know that don't feel like they don't have the courage, that it's okay, you can speak out, and yeah, don't feel ashamed or embarrassed, or it happens. So yeah.
And where does your story start?
So my story begins my story begins with my mum. At the age of 25, she took her own life when I was 3 years old. And, there's that saying that it takes a village to raise a child. Well, that's what it was for me. I had all my family, all pitching in to help look after me and, give me the best childhood and, to protect me because of what I had gone through. And, I had my dad and, grandparents and cousins and aunties and uncles. But it was around the early ages, like primary school age. I would, be at my grandparents' house quite a lot and hanging out with cousins and everyone like that. And I had uncles, my mum's 2 younger brothers. They were there, and from what I remember, I would go into this bedroom and, I would be asked to hop in the bed, and, he would do stuff to me with, humping and fiddling and everything like that. And I remember, like, there was always a TV playing, or there was always something in there. It wasn't complete silence, but there was always something in there to distract me. And at first, I didn't know what was happening because I was quite young, like it was before the age of 8. And so I was just like focused on what was playing on the TV. And after, he would do what he did, and then it was like, okay, get up, you can go back out and play. So I'd go out the room, and then I'd just carry on playing with whoever I was playing with. And then I don't know how another uncle decided that, he would try it. I'm not sure, but he tried it as well. That was only one time with him, but after a while I felt really uncomfortable. Even at a young age, I knew that wasn't right. I just felt it within me, like that's not right, And
did they tell you anything like not to tell, or?
See, no, I don't think they did, because I ended up telling. After the last time it happened to me, I just felt really, I don't even know how to explain it as a kid. I just felt really uncomfortable, and I walked into the lounge. I walked down the hallway, walked into the lounge, and then my nan and papa were watching TV in the lounge, and I said, "Oh, Nan," And she looked at me and she's like, oh, what's up? And then I was like, oh, I need to tell you something. And she said, yeah. And I said, oh, the uncles, like, they do stuff to me. And she's like, well, what are they doing? And I said, oh, well, I hop in bed and then I've got to lie there and then they do things and then when it's done, I go. And then from there, she knew. She was shocked. She was so shocked that, the granddaughter that they, tried, they did as much as they could, like, protect me. They never knew that their own sons were doing that under their roof. And yeah, they were probably young at the time, but I'm younger, like, to this day, they're probably in their mid-40s, and I've just turned 30, so yeah, they're at least 10 years older than me. And and so I don't know what made me bring it out, but yeah, I always think that it was like my mum, like, always there, like, like, helping me, because as a little kid, like, a lot of little kids don't say anything or have been told not to say anything, but I felt like, no, I didn't like this, I didn't like what was happening. And so I said that to her, and she grabbed my hand, gave me a hug, and pulled me out of the lounge, and she yelled out to her sons, and all I could hear, because they had this slider door, you could kind of slide it to separate the dining and the lounge, and all I could hear was just yelling from her and my papa, and like they were getting a hiding as well, and it was like, don't you ever fucking touch your niece, don't you ever touch any of your nieces ever again. And and after that it never happened. And growing up and becoming an adult, I have had an apology from one of the uncles, and he's cried and he said how sorry he is for even going there and doing that to me, because he knows it kind of, I didn't look at them as uncles. They were they've got 3 older brothers, so I've got 3 other uncles, and I look at them like they're everything to me. They've always protected me, and I'm so comfortable with them, but then when it comes to these other 2, I'm very wary.
How did that feel when that uncle was apologising?
I said to him, thank you for your apology, but I will always be wary around, like, who my kids are around when it comes to family, gatherings and stuff, and when it's time to have the drink, they go with Shannon, with my husband. I can't have them around, I can't put them through that. Something might happen, and that's kind of normal with, Cook Island Māori families, like all the kids are, just playing and everything like that, but I just, because of what I went through, I just can't
take that risk.
Yeah, you just never know what could happen. And so, I said to him, I accept your apology, and I just wanted to, like, leave it there, because it was really awkward. It was bringing it back up, It's like, okay, like, I don't want to think about that. So, and I don't want to send them away, to prison. I don't want that. It has been so long, and I'm not the only cousin that it happened to, and and I don't know if people think that this is, like, really wrong, but I still feel like in my heart there is still some love there, but just very, very wary when it comes to them. That when I look at them, there's always that reminder of me being that little girl, like this girl here. Just happy, and it's just hard to, like, grow up knowing that your own family the ones that are supposed to protect you, you know, are doing shady shit. And if it wasn't for me saying something, you know, it could have carried on.
Do you remember what changes to your personality before and after?
I still, like, I was still happy, and I wasn't angry or anything like that, but just every time you're just very wary around those, like I was wary around them. And yeah, and even just bringing it out, one of my uncle's ex-partners, well, her sister reached out to me and said, you know, you're so courageous for finally speaking up about this uncle, because at the time he was her brother-in-law, but she's the same age as me, and he did it to her, that she was told to hush because he would have got a hiding from her parents, which he would have deserved, you know.
Yeah.
So she said, you know, with me speaking out, she feels like it's her story coming out, you know, it's all her hurt for so many years. And yeah, I've got a photo of him, of that uncle. It's on this one, I don't.
You don't have to show it, no.
I want to show you this in
Yeah.
yeah. Just so you kind of, you know, you have a face to put to the name, or you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, so yeah, that did always affect me, but I still was happy. I still I still had a good childhood and stuff. And then with the second time that it happened, was with a different person, and I was 14, 15, and I was at my great-grandmother's tangi, and my grandmother says, you have a brother here, and I was like confused, and I said, what do you mean? She goes, he's over there. So then he brings him over, and she says, you know, you two are brother and sister. And it was shocked because he was 18, and I just thought, okay, because I'm an only child to my mum and dad. And I thought, okay, so dad had, you know, he had another kid. Now this boy's mother and my grandmother are first cousins, so they say that he is my dad's son, but there hasn't been any DNA, you know, proof or anything. But I say whether or not he's my brother, he's still my relative because of the connection, you know. But yeah, so it was all happy. I was like, yay, I've got an older brother. I thought I was the oldest, you know, and it was great. And I just was so proud that I had this older brother. And then it was when we would have drinks with family, friends, and then the first time it happened, well, I had no idea that this was going to happen, and so I used to, like, we used to bunk in the bed that he had, or there was a few of us, and but this one night we were in the bed, and he was drunk, and then he grabbed my hand and he started jerking, like making me jerk him off until he cummed, and then I was just like blown away because I knew, like, okay, what the fuck is going on, you know? And I was just shaking and scared. And so even though I wasn't, you know, my mouth wasn't covered or anything, he wasn't telling me, like, don't say anything, I felt like I couldn't say anything. I was just so distraught and
because this was your brother?
Yeah, that I had just met, and I thought the world of him. I thought, oh my gosh, like, this is so cool. But the minute that happened, the night that happened, that first time, it just, that whole brother figure just went out. I thought, what the fuck? Like, yeah, and then I was like, did I provoke this, you know? Like, because in my head I was like a teenager, you know? And I thought, fuck, and then I'm like, was I wearing something revealing that turned him on, or I don't know, you know, like this whole night was hit in his head, was he like
planning
it? Yeah. And I was like, oh the fuck is going on? And then, yeah, and then it happened again, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I sat on the doorstep of his house outside, and I just cried, and I just said to myself, Em, you can't let this happen, you know, any further, you know, you can't let penetration happen, because that'll really fuck you up. I went through like cutting my wrists, when I lived in Australia, my dad walked in, and you know, I was going through a lot then, and yeah, my arms just hanging off the bed, bleeding, and you know, I was so lost. Like, I'd gone, you know, through all this, and then again, and I didn't know what to do.
Did you have anyone to talk to, or you just kept that in?
With the brother?
Yeah, with the brother.
I did mention it to people after I had brought it out, and that was really hard. That was really hard, and I ended up finding out that it happened with a cousin, with him. He did it with her, and when I reached out to his ex-partners, one of them said, I'm shocked, but I'm not surprised, because she heard that he had done it with cousins. And so, yeah, and that's going back, I haven't seen her in over maybe 13 years, and so we just communicate through Facebook, but yeah, they just said, you know, looking at you, you'd never think that you went through that with him, and yet you still tried to have a sibling relationship, but that hurt was always there. Yeah, and I sat on his porch on the steps, and his mum's inside, you know, again, it happened under the roof of his mum, you know, she's in the other room, and I was like, this is like, I felt just like unworthy of, like, I thought I was easy, you know, like, that's how I felt, that's how he made me feel, and I cried, and I thought, I've got to tell someone, because, yeah, if it gets to having sex, then I you know, I'll be fucked. And so I told my dad's mum, my nan, and she had a psychiatrist come and live with us for a week to help talk it out through therapy with me. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it helped really, because then he was called over, and he had to come over, and he sat there. He didn't say anything, and it was so fucking awkward for me, because I'm like this 14, 15-year-old kid, and I have to like repeat everything, and then it brought up things about my mum, and I was like, what the fuck are we doing, you know? And he just sat there through it all, and I haven't had a sorry for him, you know, from him. I haven't.
He didn't say anything at all?
No. And it just, and I couldn't fully say what I'm saying now, you know, about him making me do that to him until he did that, you know. I couldn't say that because my nan was sitting there, he was sitting there, and it was just like, oh nah, this is so uncomfortable, like, I was still a virgin, you know, like, oh, I'm not saying that. And so yeah, it wasn't until early hours this morning when I spoke to Nan, she'd messaged and she said, good luck, bub, for today, you know, we're here to support you. And then I was able to really tell her that what I wanted to tell her all those years ago. And I said, man, you know, when you were sitting in on all those sessions, I couldn't say it then. I didn't have the voice to say it then. Yeah, and I told her every detail, and she was just like, I'm so disgusted. And I said, you know, that's why when you told me that you had invited him to your 70th last year and he turned up, I only stayed for the kai and then we left. Because it triggered me that he's walking around like he hasn't done anything, you know. He's laughing with family, and these family members don't know. And I'm like, oh my gosh, fuck. Yeah, and
That's gotta fucking hurt.
Yeah, it does. And I thought, if only you knew, you know, the hurt that I went through, and you know, the depression and everything, and you know, you wouldn't talk to him. And at that birthday, one of my cousins, she made a joke. He was sitting on one side and I'm way on this side, and she's saying to me, oh God, it's like you two don't even know each other, sitting so far apart. And everyone was laughing, and I just looked at her and I smiled. And then later on, I took her around the back and I explained to her everything. And she said, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know. And then her partner said, if we had known, you know, and from then on they didn't talk to him for the rest of the trip because they're from Aussie. But yeah, I said that's why I didn't react or anything to what you said, because it's just that brother I thought I had is gone. Yeah, and you know, I don't even like to call him my brother because
he doesn't deserve that title.
Nah. My dad and my mum, my stepmom, they disowned him quite a few years ago, after finding out what he did to me. Yeah, and I just, you know, I tried to have that, I tried to repair and, you know, still have a relationship, because like I'm just, yeah, I'm a nice person, you know. I just tried to, yeah, and not realizing that I am still hurting and that he wrecked me, you know. And the fact that, yeah, he just walks around like he's done nothing. And, you know, looking back at a lot of things, like a lot of them were red flags, and I probably knew it back then, but I didn't want to ruin like the whānau bond type of thing, you know, with everyone. I didn't want to let out this big secret type, you know, so I kept it to myself. And now I look at those red flags and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, it was there the whole time. Yeah.
So you didn't want to tell anyone in the family because you didn't want to disrupt the family.
Yeah, I didn't want to disrupt the family, but at the same time, I didn't want to hurt anymore. Like, yeah, I'm so glad that, yeah, the courage inside of me, like, was able to tell Nan so she could try and help me as best she could, you know, with getting the psychiatrist to come in and everything. And yeah, after that it just wasn't the same. And then it was a year later, you know, when I was 16, and then I met my husband, and then we got married at 16.
Wow.
Yeah, he's my saving grace. Like, he, you know, it wasn't the whole, oh yeah, sleep together, you know, it was someone to hear me and see me, you know, and accept me even with all my hurt, you know.
And he was that man.
Yeah, and we're still together.
And was when you first got into that relationship with him, did you explain it to him?
Yeah, I felt like that was one of the first things I had to say to him, because I didn't want to leave any secrets, or it felt heavy on me to know that I was holding that. And a bit of me was like, oh, what if he feels grossed out? You know, and he's like, oh, I don't want to go with you, or whatever, like, ooh. But he wasn't, he was not like that.
And how does that feel to have someone to support you?
Yeah, it was a huge, like, weight lifted, you know, off my shoulders at that young age. And it was like, cool, okay, he's still there, he's still supporting me. And to this day, he still supports me.
Was there any type of, you know, like, were you thinking about males touching you, about in the beginning, about him touching you, or was it just different because
it was different?
It felt right.
Yeah, it felt right with him, and it's so hard to explain because he was living in Auckland. Like, he's lived in Auckland since he was 4, and so he was only doing a year of high school in Hastings. So it was like, when I saw him, it just, something about him just pulled me towards him. And yeah, I got his number and I texted him. I said, you don't know who I am, my name's Emily. do you want to get to know each other, you know? And he was like, oh,
Wow,
yeah.
girl got game.
I know, that's what I mean, you know, I have these moments where I have this courage and I'm
Yes.
like, where did that come from? And yeah, and I just did, and then it just hit it off from there. And I, he just felt there was no uncomfortableness with him or anything. But yeah, when it comes to my kids,
Yeah. How has what you've been through affected you as a parent?
I worry a lot, and even thinking about what could happen hurts me, you know. I get quite upset, and so, you know, I've just opened up and I said to my family, you know, like, when you don't see my kids or my husband at our family things, it's because I asked him to stay behind, you know. I asked him to look after the kids because I just,
Does
especially
it
my
suck
kids.
not being able to trust to bring
Yeah.
your children to,
Yeah.
you know?
It does, to bring them and to talk and, you know, to be involved with, because they have missed like quite a few family events, you know, and sometimes it's because they don't want to come, but a lot of the times I'm just scared, I'm just wary, because you just never know, you never know. As we've heard, it could be your dad, your uncles, your auntie,
Your brother.
yeah. Like you just, and so,
And about the therapy when you had the psychiatrist, how come that kind of worked, kind of didn't work? What part didn't? Or what could have been done differently?
Because I wasn't fully being honest with everything that happened, and I was holding back from her because my nan was there and he was there. So I was like, in my head, I'm like, well, I don't want to say too much because I don't want to get in trouble. Or
So what could have happened that would have made you a lot more comfortable if he wasn't there?
If he wasn't there. I don't know. I guess for my nan, she was just, in her mind, she probably thought, Kate, we need to all play it out.
Yeah.
He needs to be here, you need to be here, you know, but
I wonder if that's how it was back then, that we just have a whānau hui and we put it all out on the table, but without taking into consideration how you would feel.
Yeah, and that's what she said last, you know, in our phone conversation. She said, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't realise to the extent of how bad you went, you know, what you went through. And she said, now it all makes sense. You're going through your suicidal thoughts and your depression and all of that, you know. I have my up and down days, and she sees it all now, you know. It's all clear to her now. And because back then, you know, after the last session, it was like everyone stands up, hugs, makes up, and then it's done, you know. But because I guess to her, she just thought it was just a kind of a kiss, you know. It wasn't the actual, those other acts, you know, that he was doing, he was making me do. So and I was just like, okay, so that's it, you know. Is that all that happens? And then it's play happy family, you know. She was still loving towards him, and that was a bit hard for me because I was like, he's hurt me, and you're still treating him, you know, like he hasn't done nothing. So it's definitely changed now since our conversation last night. Now that she sees everything, she's going to have a big talk with him, and she's going to tell him that I've done this live, and whether or not he wants to watch it, and I just distance myself from him, you know.
If he does watch this, what would you want him to hear?
You know, that it may have looked like I was okay and I had healed, but, you know, you never forget. You never forget what, you know, these things you go through. And I would just want him to get help, you know. I don't want to see him locked away because he's got kids, you know, and he doesn't live in this country, but yeah, you just need help because it's got to stop. And maybe it's because, you know, he's been abused and maybe he hasn't dealt with that. Because I believe that people who abuse have been abused themselves. Like, yeah. And it's just, yeah, it's really hurting because even songs now that I hear are triggers because of him. Because he would always play them, and at that time they were happy songs, they were cool, but now, yeah, I just can't listen to them at all. Yeah.
Is there anything else that triggers you?
Just seeing him. Yeah, I think out of the two experiences of abuse that I went through, his one hurts me more because I was much older, and I really looked up to him at one point until he did what he did. It just, yeah, it changed everything. I was just disgusted, and yeah, seeing him triggers me, you know. So when I saw him last year, I was like, I didn't think he'd come back to New Zealand for this birthday, you know. So I thought, nah. And yeah, when I saw him, I was just like, no, I can't do this. Yeah.
Oh, mean.
Yeah. But
Mean. All right, well, I just want to say thank you so much for being a part of the Let Me Speak campaign.
yeah.
Sharing, turning your wounds into wisdom and helping thousands of people to find the courage and the confidence to speak up like you have today.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you so much.